Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Trust. Today I'm sitting down with William Heathcoat Amory, one of our Kepler analysts, to talk about opportunities for investors in the biotech sector with the particular focus on International Biotechnology Trust. William, thanks for joining us today. Could you start off by providing an overview of the trust?
Yeah, well, IBT is actually, it's a very specialist trust, and the managers target outperformance of the NASDAQ Biotechnology Index, which is effectively the global benchmark for the sector. It's a very active strategy. They typically hold around 70 companies in the portfolio, which compares to the NASDAQ Biotechnology Index, which has about 225 companies in it. It is they look for well-managed and well-financed companies that have unmet medical needs. The portfolio is diversified both by development stage, by the size of the company, and by the therapeutic area they look at. The team actually moved to Schroders at the back end of 2023 with no change to the approach or the team, and there is a small portfolio of unlisted companies that will continue to be managed by SV Health, which is the original parent company of the managers before they switched to Schroders.
Why do you think a biotech trust might be interesting to investors?
Well, fundamentally, it's all about the impressive potential growth that these companies are able to deliver, because these companies are really at the forefront of innovation and scientific discovery. Now, more importantly, there's an established mergers and acquisitions, or M&A, cycle within the sector. Effectively, the large mega cap companies that dominate the indices, they effectively outsource their R&D to these small companies to do the discovery and innovation. And when they find an interesting product, then typically the big company will buy that company to then distribute the successful product that they have through their global distribution channels. And that means that there's there's an established way of crystallizing value from successful innovations. In contrast, the indices, or the NASDAQ Biotechnology Index, is obviously market cap weighted, which means that if you buy the index, you're effectively getting all of the acquirers and none of the growthier innovators. And that, in my view, is the reason why having an actively managed strategy really makes sense in this space. Effectively, the managers need to discriminate between the overhyped, overpriced, and low-quality companies, and invest in those that they think are better. But they also have to understand the science, which helps to spread the risks across the portfolio so that you don't end up with too much risk in one therapeutic area.
And could you talk us through the background of the managers?
Yes, well, Elsa Craig and Marek Popinczynski, they both have been on the management team for over a decade, but they both were made co-lead managers in March 2021. Both of the managers have science degrees, and they have focused on life sciences for their whole careers. One of the refreshing things about these two is that they don't claim to have 20/20 foresight on the prospects for companies, because no one can really outguess the clinical trials processes. Now, they have very deep knowledge of the clinical and regulatory approval process, which effectively gives them one of their unique approaches to investing in this space, in that they manage risk, particularly coming up to a clinical trials result. And this differs from the biotech peers. Only a small portion of drugs pass these clinical trials, and the managers try not to take a view on whether they're going to be successful or not. And ahead of a trials result, they reduce the active weight, or the overweight or underweight, to that company, and this manages the risks. Another recent example of the managing risk is that they recycled some proceeds from an M&A transaction into 2 or 3 clusters of small cap companies, each of which had different approaches to the same therapeutic area. So what they're trying to do is to get exposure to the race, but not back a single horse in that particular therapeutic area, and thereby reducing the risk that they've backed the wrong horse.
And how has the trust performed over the last few years?
Well, of course, Elsa and Marek they have been contributing to the long-term performance track record. But really, in March 2024 will be the 3-year anniversary of them taking over co-lead management for the trust. Happily, IBT has outperformed the benchmark and the AIC peer group over 1, 3, and 5 years. And in fact, 2023 saw 7 takeover offers for companies in the portfolio, which in my view shows the validity of their approach, but also that this is the stage in the M&A cycle that really the big caps are starting to see value in the smaller names.
And what do you see as some of the benefits to a closed-ended structure in this space?
Well, IBT actually uses a lot of the tools that closed-end funds have to potentially enhance returns relative to open-ended funds. First of all, they don't have to hold cash to meet redemptions. And secondly, the liquidity of the underlying holdings really isn't a big issue for the company, given they aren't having to make redemptions. And so it allows the managers to invest across the market cap spectrum. And actually, the trust does hold some quite small companies. Gearing is another tool that investment trusts use to enhance returns. And IBT has been an enthusiastic user of gearing over time. Gearing does vary depending on what the team see in terms of opportunities, valuations, and which stage of the M&A cycle we're in. One of the biggest advantages that investment trusts have, I think, over open-ended funds is to be able to invest into private companies. And IBT has an allocation which is expected between 5 and 15% over time. And it makes these investments through an SV Health fund, which targets small, early-stage companies in the biotech space. And that really gives IBT another unique area that they're investing in compared to peers. Additionally, investment trusts do occasionally trade at discounts. At the moment, IBT is trading on discount like a lot of the investment trust sector. So that, again, is an opportunity for investors.
What do you see as some of the current opportunities in biotech?
Well, I think the opportunity in the biotech sector is, fundamentally, it's a secular growth theme. There's the demand drivers are basically constant. There's an aging population around the world, and there's an increasingly prevalence of chronic disease. The growing middle class in the emerging markets also means that there's more and more people able to pay for solutions to their ills. On the other side, on the supply side, innovation continues at pace, and really the biotech sector is really where science and technology meet, and there's potential for AI to further enhance that, I think, in terms of analysing data and creating solutions to problems. I suppose fundamentally life science is where genuinely life-changing innovations happen, and this is obviously very, very exciting for investors, particularly with this persistence of the M&A cycle. Big pharma companies have patents that will run out. That's an absolute guarantee. And these companies are producing the products of the future for these big companies. At the current time, there are very subdued valuations in the sector. And this means that, as I was mentioning earlier, M&A is happening at pace in the sector. The valuations are low because of higher interest rates and the equity markets are effectively closed. So there will be companies that do run out of cash. But as I said, IBT tries to invest in the higher quality, well-financed businesses that aren't put in tricky positions. But that means that IBT should be in a really good position to continue to benefit from this recovery in M&A. And actually, performance over the last quarter of 2023 just shows what can happen when sentiment switches. And I think IBT is really well positioned to benefit from these tailwinds should they come back again.
Great. That's a very uplifting note on which to end our discussion today. William, thank you very much for joining us. If you'd like to learn more about the Trust, there's a wealth of information available on IBT's website. I particularly recommend Elsa and Marek's monthly blogs. We also hope you can join us for our live webinar with Elsa and Marek on the 19th of March. Details of this are on the Kepler Trust Intelligence website alongside our research on IBT. Thank you for watching, and we hope you join us again soon.